Hello and welcome back. I am Mr. Sosotris, and this week I am doing my November reading wrap-up, so let's get into it. There's a cat here and she has a lot to say. So I'm going to eschew my normal setup, I guess, because I only read 4 books in November, and none of it really fits into the categories that I normally use. So we'll just go through the 4 books and go from there. So first off, I read Elfie by Gregory Maguire. This is his prequel-ish. It's like an in-between quill because it takes place kind of in the early chapters of Wicked, looking at Elphaba when she was a child. It starts when she's like 3 or 4 and it goes up until she's about 14, 15 when she kind of goes off to shiz. And I really, really loved it. There's some really good character work. The flow of it was a little more kind of continuous than some of his other books. Sometimes he tends to kind of jump around, or there's like, especially in Wicked, there's like big time jumps. And this one there is time jumps because we kind of follow a number of years, but for the most part it feels like it flows really well, and the character arcs are really good. We get to see more of kind of Elphaba's relationship with her father and how complicated that is. We get to see more of Nessa Rose when she was a child, and the relationship that her and Elphaba had, and the sort of like, they weren't always siblings that connected in kind of a super meaningful way. There was always a distance there, but they did need each other. And so despite the things that kind of kept them from becoming really close and understanding each other, we still see that they did need one another, and that was really cool. We also get to see Shell as a child, and Shell is a monster, and there's some very creepy foreshadowing for sort of how bad Shell's gonna get when he gets older. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. It was a perfect kind of ending to the series. And then as soon as I came back from seeing Wicked for Good, which was really good, I loved it. The Wicked kind of musical version is very, very different from the books. It's a totally separate universe, but I love them both sort of equally. And as I was coming home from seeing it, I noticed that Gregory Maguire announced that he's doing another prequel focusing on Glinda, and it's called Galinda, when looking at her when she was little. And based on kind of how the series has gone so far, I think we can assume that this is going to be a lot more of kind of high society satire, and kind of looking at the Gilkenese culture, and from kind of an inside perspective, because Glinda is very privileged and she grows up in this, and it isn't really until she meets Elphaba that her kind of worldview is a little bit shaken. But again, in the books, Elphaba and Glinda aren't sort of the eternal good friends that they are in the musical. They're sort of 2 characters who meet in school, and they both kind of have a bit of an effect on one another, and then they kind of part ways, and they don't really see each other for a long time after that. I think they do meet randomly a bit later on. But I'm really excited to see kind of Glinda's backstory, because hers is one of privilege and kind of an airy disconnection from the world around her. She was very sort of unaware of everything that was happening and just not at all a part of the political kind of stuff. Her entire world revolved around sort of marrying well and getting money, and it's very Jane Austen kind of thing. So I'm really excited to see what he does with her story. That should be coming out next year, and I'm pretty stoked. So the next book that I read was Wolves of the Calla. This is book 5 of Stephen King's Dark Tower series. And in the past, the first time I read the series, this one was kind of the one that it didn't quite work for me because it felt slow and aimless. And this time when I read it, it was great. I really had a great time with it. There was a lot of plot threads and character threads that I missed out on kind of the first time. And so going through it this time, I really enjoyed this one a whole lot more. And it really felt like it was an integral kind of part of the story, because it changes things from they're just off on a quest seeing what they can see to these are the stakes, this is what their goal is, this is where they're going, this is what's happening, this is who the villains are, and it really kind of sets things up for the last two books. So I really enjoyed that one and had a great time. I'm currently reading Song of Susanna book 6, so I should be finished with that in the next couple days. I went through these ones via audiobook. The first time I read them physically, and it's a really great experience. Now, book 5 and 6 and 7 are narrated by a different person from the first two. Actually, the audio versions I'm listening to, this narrator also narrated The Gunslinger, but the original audiobook narrator did a really good job, and I really loved him. And he had kind of a medical emergency that sort of made it so he wasn't really able to continue recording the audiobooks, and so there's a new audiobook narrator, and he takes some getting used to at first, but by the end of it you're like, this is great, this is exactly, you know, the person I'm looking for. So I really enjoyed this, and I'm excited to go back through them, you know, this whole series in audio form after reading them physically the first time. So that's been fun. The next book that I read was a standalone book by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This one's called The Bewitching. This is kind of a gothic, New England, paranormal mystery / thriller. It's not quite as fast-paced as one would think with like a thriller, but it's got this kind of slow build kind of thing. And this one is all about the atmosphere. There is like the gloomy New England forests, and you know, this is the world of Edgar Allan Poe and Nathaniel Hawthorne and George Washington Carver, and it's just, it was a lot of fun. Now, I did find that the main mystery was a little predictable, but I didn't really care because the story is just like, you read it for just the atmosphere. And I read this in kind of right at the end of October. I started it like October 31st and then finished it the first couple days of November, and I really enjoyed it. And I just heard that Silvia Moreno Garcia announced another book called The Intrigue, which is coming out maybe next year, I think. This woman is a machine. She pumps out these books so fast. I don't know how she has time to like exist as a human person, but all of her books are wonderful. This one is a noir thriller, and she's done this before with like Velvet Was the Night, and I'm trying to think if there was another one. Untamed Shore was kind of a crime thriller, but not necessarily noir. And then her vampire book, Certain Dark Things, is kind of neo-noir. She calls it a neon noir because it's kind of set in the modern day and everything, but she handles that fairly well. And I think Velvet Was the Night was good, but I couldn't really connect with the character as much. The atmosphere was great and the story was good, but she usually has really fantastic like protagonists that really drag you in, and that one I wasn't able to really connect with it. It was still a good book, but I am excited to see what she does returning to that genre because she obviously really enjoys it. So I'm excited to read this one when it comes out. Honestly, I could just read just Silvia Moreno Garcia books and I would be fine because she releases them so regularly. She's nuts. But anyways, I also finished reading Drums of Autumn by Diana Gabaldon. This is book 4 in her Outlander series. I'm going through them again with the audiobooks, the new audiobook versions narrated by Kristen Atherton, who does a really fantastic job. I've read the whole series in physical and the original Davina Porter audiobooks, and it's one of my favorite series of all time ever, and I'm really enjoying going back through it with this new narrator. She does such a good job. This one is probably one of my favorites of the whole series, and she did a really fantastic job. It's funny, this book also contains a trope that I normally really hate. It's got this sort of the miscommunication thing where it, like, the entire awful stuff that happens in the final third of this book could be avoided if people just talked to one another. Now, granted, a lot of character stuff wouldn't happen, so I get why it happens, and all the characters do behave in character. It's not like you can see the hand of the author sort of keeping things from making sense. Like, everyone is behaving the way that they normally would behave, and so it really makes sense, but it's still the miscommunication. Things get so bad and you're just like, just talk to each other, but then it does resolve and you're like, okay, thank you, we're fine. And so it's very satisfying. And so the satisfying ending sort of balances out how frustrated you are at everybody because of the miscommunication. But anyways, so that one's really good. Her next book, The Fiery Cross, the new version, releases end of December. I'm really excited about that one. And so those are the 4 books that I read in November. Obviously, Wolves of the Calla and Drums of Autumn are both very long books. I went through both of those in audio form, so I was able to get through them fairly fast. Long audiobooks like that usually take me about 2 weeks to get through, and I had a great time with them, but I didn't have a whole lot of time to read like physical books. And like for physical books, I read Elfie and The Bewitching. I both went through those in on ebooks on my Kobo, and so I don't read very quickly. Everyone knows this, but I'm currently reading the first book in Ben Alderson's Realm of Fae series, which is called Betrayer of Storms, I believe. And it's great. It's like, it's a romantasy with like the Fae and all that stuff, and there's like the high stakes, and there's court drama, and there's murder and everything, and then along through that there's kind of a romance at the heart of it, but it's all gay all the time, and it's great. It also features one of the coolest lesbians ever, and she's my favorite character so far, and I love her so much, and I want her to be happy by the end of the series. I don't want her to have any kind of tragedy whatsoever, because she's magnificent and I love her. But it's great. This book series, everyone makes fun of romantasy, but to be honest, this series, it reminds me a lot of like Dragon Age, where you like choose a romance option, but like there's also other stuff going on. So there's like the big stakes and, you know, giant magic things that need to be dealt with, and armies and enemies and subterfuge and everything. And then, you know, one of the through lines throughout it is sort of, you know, the main character and, you know, their hot bodyguard, and they end up getting together. But it sort of has that Dragon Age feel, and so it's very wonderful, and I love it. So don't make fun of romantasy, because romantasy is fun and enjoyable, and I like it. Anyways, so before I go, I did want to talk really quickly about sort of my future plans for the channel, because we're getting near to the end of the year, and this is kind of when I normally think about like, how do I want to reevaluate things? And one of the things is these, like the more complicated videos, they take quite a long time to make, and so they have been sort of eating up my entire Sundays every week. It's like 6-7 hours just working on one video, and I need more free time, because I can't keep giving up my entire day to that. And so what I'm thinking of doing is changing my focus a little bit. I still want to focus on books, obviously. This is still a bookish channel, but I think I want to focus on like shorter videos, and maybe do either kind of a mix of like just book reviews, so like a short, maybe 10-15 minute book review, or just kind of a wrap up of what I read that week. So I'm going to kind of play around with it a little bit and see how things go. I like doing these monthly wrap-ups, so I might just stick to kind of, you know, weekly book reviews. But a lot of the big complicated discourse videos, and I don't really care about discourse a lot anyways, so a lot of it is more just, I feel like it's something that people would be interested in, but I don't want to get involved in a lot of discourse just for the sake of getting clicks, because that's not why I'm doing this. I could just be blabbing to like one person who watches the videos, and I'd be fine with that. So I think I'm focusing more on like just single book reviews each week. I might talk about a book that I've read, or I might talk about a book that I have read in the past, or I might just talk about a book that's going to be released. I don't know. I'm going to kind of play around with it, but I want to focus more on like shorter videos each week, so I don't have to spend quite so much time. Now, the Lit 101 series I do like, and I think I will continue it, but it'll just be sort of spread out a little bit more, and I'll do those when I sort of have the time to devote to those, because those take a lot more planning, and because I have to write notes, and usually, you know, going through kind of a big work or something. And so I'm gonna keep doing those, but I think they'll just be less less frequent than they have been. So we'll see how this goes. If there's anything that like I have done that you really enjoyed and you want to see more of, let me know in the comments. But I think I'm going to focus more on like just single book reviews each week. I'm kind of also downsizing on my social media commitments just because it's taking over everything, and also because social media is just kind of not really fun anymore. I know this sounds very dramatic and everything, but like I've noticed like TikTok, it used to be all like, you know, bookish folks and reviews and like music and stuff, and it was great. And now it's all just kind of AI stuff, and I don't see as many bookish people. I have to kind of specifically seek them out. They don't show up normally in my feed anymore. And so I don't know, I feel like I'm stepping away from TikTok for a bit. I'm not deleting my account. I just deleted it off my phone, and I'm gonna step away from it for a bit, because I was just doom scrolling just news all the time, and the news is all bad, and it was just very negative because it wasn't constructive news. Like if I'm interested in current events, I'll read, like there's a couple news sources that I like, but just getting news from TikTok, it was just this barrage of just negativity, and it was overwhelming all the stuff that I normally did enjoy doing. So I'm stepping away from that, and I'm not going to be posting on Instagram much anymore. Instagram has just kind of become and I don't know, Meta's getting weird anyways, and I hate Facebook so much. I still have it because I have one group chat that I've had since like college for like 2 other people that I want to keep in touch with, so that's fine. But other than that, I'm just kind of stepping away from everything. So I'm going to stay on YouTube because I really like the YouTube community. The bookish folks here are great, and the algorithm I think is still, at least for now, focusing on like the people who are making real meaningful content about stuff rather than just AI low effort stuff that just sort of is garbage, and I don't want to do that. So I don't know, I'm just blabbing at this point. But so going forward, I'm going to focus on maybe making shorter videos, and because I'm going to be doing single book reviews here, I don't really need to do them elsewhere, and so I can put a little bit more thought into them instead of like a 3-minute book review where I don't say anything other than I liked this book, it was really great, because that it doesn't help anybody. So we'll see how it goes, and I'll probably shift things around a little bit, but you know, who knows? It'll be fun. We'll see how it goes. But I'm excited to keep this channel going, because I want it to be like a fun hobby. I don't want it to become a job. I don't want it to become like an obligation or anything, and I don't want it to be a source of income. I don't want it, if it becomes a source of income, I'll take it way too seriously, and it'll just take over my life, and I don't want to do that. So this is just a fun, silly, goofy thing that I'm doing weekly as a hobby, and I'm going to try to keep it that way. So we'll see how it goes, and then we'll go on. So with that said, I will see you next week, and in the meantime, happy reading. Bye.